thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. I hope you're feeling better. I know you weren't feeling well last night. So.
Thank you. Tiring weekend, but I'm all good now, so thank you so much.
I'm Doug Engler with Anime-zing Radio. We are a big fan of yours. Love the work that you've done with Show by Rock, Mosh My Resh. I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
And I was curious, what was it like to be able to be a part of an anime where they allowed you to do singing in English as well as the voice acting?
Oh, it was awesome. I am not a professionally trained singer, but when I heard that we were going to do the song, I was really excited because they would adapt the lyrics. We would have a music director guiding us through the songs, so that was a really fun experience for me.
And also, how did your performance have to change, or how did you have to change what you do as a voice actor when COVID hit? I know a lot of people had to create home studios and stuff. Did you have one pre-made, or is that something you had to do once the pandemic had hit?
Yeah, I was already kind of familiar with remote recording, the process behind it, essentially. But once the pandemic actually hit, a couple of friends of mine and I decided that, well, you know, this is probably going to be going on for a while, so we should probably prepare for this. So we pulled together and purchased a booth, and that has served us very well ever since during the pandemic. So luckily, we do have some of the know-how of how to operate the remote systems. So yeah, we've been using that throughout the pandemic.
And has that transition helped make you understand a little bit more of behind-the-scenes processes and things, like editing and understanding more of what engineers do behind the scenes and stuff? Because from some of the other voice actors we've talked to, when it first started, they would have to not just record it, but then try to match the sound and stuff, send it to the engineer. They send it back and say you need to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a learning curve. I had never engineered before. They used Pro Tools, and so during my time when I was working with Funimation during that time, they had requested the actors to sort of sync up audio to the video of the lip flaps. So that was a very challenging experience, but after doing it, I'm very glad that I learned it because I gained that skill set. Now they are obviously moving away from this method. That was only during the very beginning of the pandemic where everybody was trying to figure out what to do. So it was hard for me as an actor because I had to take direction and do the voice acting and engineer at the same time and like make sure that it fits the lip flaps and everything. But after that, I think they moved into Source Connect method where they just recorded on their end and they could engineer from their end. So it became a lot easier.
And one thing that we were talking about this morning in the hotel room, pre-pandemic in Japan, the voice actors, they would have multiple in a booth to record scenes. Do you ever see that happening here in the U.S. with the studios, or do you think they're specifically going to stay isolated?
It's very rare, especially in anime and ADR. We all pretty much record separately. There is no group recordings. The only time I really see group recordings is if it's in a pre-lay production, so that means like it's not animated yet. So there would be an ensemble of actors reading off the script together. But that's not typically seen in anime, so we've always kind of been isolated in that aspect.
Is it something you'd like to see tried for anime? Because that's one argument I've heard from sub versus dub, where this subtitles, it just sounds more fluid and stuff because there isn't the editing of you record, Brianna records, Megan Shipman records, and then they have to fit everything together to make it sound fluent.
Yeah.
Is it something you'd like to see implemented at some point, or at least tried?
I think that would be very interesting to try, at least. I think it might be a difficult technical hurdle just because the engineer would have to manage so many voice actors in a room and match all of their lip flaps at the same time. So it'd be a lot of like a group of people standing there waiting for placement to happen. Because for anime and ADR, it's done line by line pretty much. So it might be, for time's sake, it might actually be more efficient to record it individually. But it would be a very interesting experience to do a group thing.
Hi, Suzie.
Hi.
Aaron from ESP. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I'll start with an easy one. With all of our guests this month I've been kind of collecting the following question. Side hustles. I'm so curious. Our community is curious. Caitlin Galt, for example, who's not here but was at AAC for her side gig, whether it's something that you want to profit off of eventually or whether it's just something that you enjoy. Caitlin makes these little antique chests when you open them up, they're refrigerators. So like icebox antique combinations. Yeah, they're really cool. She has a cute shop on Etsy.
Yeah.
Her husband, Kyle, has tabletop role-playing games and board games on Twitch. And Lauren is a novelist.
Oh.
So for a side hustle or a side hobby, sometimes there is overlap. What would you say yours is? Or maybe you have multiple.
Oh, I wish at the time I could say I do have a side hustle, but the funny thing is voice acting used to be my side hustle because I didn't start in voiceover, I didn't do any acting prior to this. I had just been in a regular 9-to-5 job, but voice acting was my hobby, so I kind of like did little bits here and there just for like few, extra $100 of cash or something. But it wasn't like for money, it was just for side passion, essentially. So now that I've moved full-time into voice acting, it's only been 2 years since then. I haven't really had a chance to develop a side hustle necessarily, but I have been enjoying streaming over the past year. So that's something that I really hope to do. It's just that I'm quite busy with voice acting as itself, but I'm hoping to definitely venture more into other avenues as well.
Totally. What are you streaming right now for content? Is it variety or anything specific that you've gotten into?
It's mostly so far been the games that I voice in. A lot of my community loves just watching me play and react to my own performance. So that's been a really fun experience and a great way to connect to fans because they don't really get to see me react or watch stuff that I've been in. So it's a great way to experience it together. And besides that, like I have other ideas, maybe reading streams, reading the audiobooks that I did, or mukbangs or something like that.
Oh, cool. Have you done any mukbangs before?
I did once when I cooked hot pot, like a
cool.
little pot on a portable stove. And I just chatted with my fans and community, so it was really, really fun.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been playing a lot of Genshin Impact on your stream.
I haven't been playing as much. I haven't had time lately to play too many games, but I played that, Final Fantasy, Persona, and yeah, games that I'm not even in, like I play those as well.
Well, just last question for me, and I'll turn it back to my colleagues. Well, what was your 9 to 5? What was your daily grind as you were doing voice acting as a side hustle?
I was doing international admissions, students looking to study in university here. Yeah, so I was working a lot with international students, so it's a lot of communication back and forth with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Knowing that you've done a fair amount of not just anime but video game voiceover work, what would you say is the biggest difference between the two?
Oh, I would say probably the amount of freedom that you have. With anime, it's quite restricted based on the script that you are given and also the technicalities, the lip flaps. So it's already pre-existing animation. You essentially have to follow not only that and have the script make sense, but also sort of match the energy of the Japanese as well. Whereas for video games, we typically don't have any animation to go off of. Like we don't really see anything, we just see a script. And there is some room to sort of improvise or ad-lib. Some studios really do enjoy when you do that because it gives more life to the character. Because a lot of things aren't necessarily developed yet, unless it's like a JRPG where it's already existing. So they kind of adapt to your voice and to your performance. So that is a really cool aspect that I tend to like with video games.
And you've been a part of a lot of iconic franchises with Genshin Impact, Final Fantasy, Attack on Titan. Did you ever see yourself when you started voice acting becoming a part of such iconic franchises and now people want to meet you and talk with you about your work?
Not in the slightest. I had no idea I would be even going into this career in the first place. It wasn't anything that was remotely on my mind. I just kind of fell into it and I got really fortunate with the timing and opportunities that came my way. I was prepared to meet them. But Yeah, for example, for Final Fantasy, I remember watching my friends play it during COVID, the remake. And I thought to myself, wow, this is so cool, so amazing. I would love to be part of this game as just any small part, like additional character voices, or even a cat. Like, I don't mind, I just want to be in this game somehow. So I was very fortunate to be able to join the game as a very iconic character, Yuffie, so very excited about that.
And with the uptick in isekais that have been coming out, tons every season, you've been a part of some of my favorite shows, including Killing Science for 300 Years.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to play a little slime girl?
A little. Well, she's very cute. I love her dynamic with her sister. That she's like kind of the quiet one and kind of no nonsense one, and her sister is flying off the walls. So isekais are always very wacky and fun to be a part of.
So speaking of your international work, when I was working rescue, when I was working on the ambulance in Boston, I had a partner who was here on a visa from Japan, and every shift we used to go out of our way to get roti Thai for the Indonesian fried rice, and we would be like running from call to call, sweating, but we have to make that stuff. And there's just so much free food there, but
Oh yeah.
that's definitely a recommendation.
Yeah, kind of on that note,
Yeah.
I also worked at a college with a very high international student
Oh, yeah.
population who is
Mhm.
there on visas,
Right.
and just talking to students from very different places about anime, video games, it's just
That's so
it's
cool.
fascinating because that's kind of somewhat universal, but also somewhat not.
Yeah. Which college or university?
I work at Brandeis
Oh, very
up in
cool.
Waltham.
You know, it's crazy to me because even, I don't know, 5 years ago, I feel like anime and video games weren't that big, or they weren't that mainstream popular. So I didn't hear too many people talk about that openly. But now it's literally all the kids are just crazy over Genshin Impact and anime and Demon Slayer and all of this stuff, to the point where even the Starbucks barista will be like, oh my god, like I love, Tanjiro or something. So it's very surreal but awesome to see the love for something that we loved back then. It wasn't nearly as popular as it was now.
I will say, look, at a glance, going over, because I take in so much content,
Yeah.
and just kind of refamiliarizing myself with who did what.
Mhm.
You've actually been in 2 shows that I have watched semi-recently that I absolutely have adored,
Oh.
but never really seemed to catch the mainstream per se.
Sure.
One of which, 86,
Yes.
and the other one, Moriarty the Patriot.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So, what were your thoughts on those specifically? Like, because they're both somewhat serious.
Yeah, I love them. They're excellent shows, and my experience working on them has been some of the best in anime, honestly speaking. Because like with Moriarty, I love working with a director. He's so passionate about this show. He's like read all the manga, cast very, very carefully, because he cares so much about Moriarty, and it turned out to be wonderful. Especially when we finished recording the scenes, we would go back and see, oh, are we happy with this? A lot of times in anime that doesn't happen because there's not enough time, or people just are like, okay, that's it, like you recorded the lines, you're done, and you finish early. But he will use that extra time to go back with you and be like, are you okay with this performance? Do we like this? Does it sound okay with the rest of the scene? Like, it was a lot of care put into this. So I super enjoy working on that. And as for 86, it's very close to my heart because I think she's maybe the second protagonist that I played in Bang Zoom. And it's such a beautiful show. I read the first light novel, and I was so surprised at how closely the anime adapted to the story. I was like, whoa, I can imagine all the scenery just from the words on the page. It was really incredible. A lot of love was also put in that show, and it's very apparent from the dub which I've seen so many comments saying like it's just as good as the sub, or if not better, like because it just seems so natural, and everybody on the cast is simply amazing, and I have so much admiration for my peers. So I know I gushed like a lot about this, but I love those shows.
And another iconic franchise that you were able to be a part of was the Fruits Basket franchise when they rebooted in 2019. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised when you got cast as the young Soma?
I was. I do know there were auditions that went out. I think he was initially played by a different actress for the other seasons. So I think they couldn't reprise for this season, so I had auditioned as somewhat of a voice match. I don't personally think I sound like them, but it was close enough to where it wouldn't be like totally different from the experience that fans would have previously.
Is it tough to try to voice match a character that's been voiced before?
I would say so, because everyone's voice is obviously very different. We have a different vocal print, different vocal tics that you can pick out. So I try my best to be as close to them as possible, but also bring some of my own into the character as well.
And also, there was another question that I had in my head and went, oh, Rent-A-Girlfriend.
Yes.
What was it like to be a part of that? That blew up a lot bigger than I think a lot of people thought it was, especially in the US. Mm-hmm. And it was a great show. Mm-hmm. What was it like to be a part of that?
I was also surprised because a lot of fans have been coming up to me who are Rent-A-Girlfriend fans, and very surprised at the reception as well. It was really cool. I was surprised that I'm always surprised when I'm cast, but it was fun because my co-star Alex Lay had reached out to me and congratulated me for being part of the show, so I knew that it was a very fun project to work on because everyone is very passionate about it as well. And working with the director was really fun as well. Like with my session with Sumi, unfortunately she was there for like one episode in season 1, and she made a bunch of noises, and it was really funny just making weird sounds, and yeah.
So going back to Final Fantasy VII
Mm-hmm.
for a second.
Yeah.
As you were preparing for Yuffie,
Mm-hmm.
Did you go back and watch Advent Children again, or had you already seen it?
I had already seen it, so I knew of Yuffie. I knew who she was because I had watched the movie, where I remember my younger self thinking, wow, like who is this cool ninja girl who just dropped out of the sky? She's so cool. I want to know who she is. So I already knew her from then, and further got reintroduced to her through Kingdom Hearts. So I already liked her a lot as a character. But after that audition, I guess I didn't prepare too much because I knew that the remake was a fresh, new imagining of the characters. Like they would have influence from the previous iterations, of course, but I really wanted to sort of go in and make it my own, and also kind of trust my gut. It was also the very first audition that I received when I got to LA and started my whole voice acting career. So I just thought to myself, I'm gonna give it my best and not think about it too much. And that's what I did. I think after I got cast, though, was when I went back and looked at sort of the original scenes, like the original 7 scenes, just to get a feel for what she does and her quirks and stuff. But other than that, yeah.
Lots of collecting material.
Yes, very
So
much so.
you have gotten a chance to at least check out some of the scenes from the old video game.
Yeah. Some of the more iconic ones, like her in the forest and the golden
Yeah.
saucer, so very funny.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take on as an experience to play the
Mhm.
entirety of
Oh,
this
yeah.
PS1 version.
Yeah. And personally for me, it was hard for me to go back and play those sort of games because my first Final Fantasy was 10. So oh yeah, I love that game so much. But since then, like, there was voice acting and great graphics in 10. Since then, I really couldn't go back to playing, so I was just waiting for the remakes to happen.
Which is very similar to Riku, so it's that same sort of
Yes.
trophy.
Actually, Riku
character,
was
yeah.
my favorite character in all of Final Fantasy. Is my favorite character. I agree.
Riku is fun, and
Yeah.
Final Fantasy X was one of my first,
Oh.
it was my first Final Fantasy as well.
Yeah.
And one of the first video games I played start to finish without giving up halfway through.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love that game. It's such a classic.
So Final Fantasy as a franchise just holds a special place in my heart as well.
Oh, it holds such a special place in a lot of people's hearts. It is such a huge thing to be part of, and I'm so honored to be part of this incredible world. Yeah.
Final Fantasy IX was my first experience with
Oh.
Final Fantasy, and it's one of only 2 RPG style games like that I've actually completed.
Oh yeah. What was the other one?
The other one was a game called YS, Arc of Nephistum,
Okay.
which it had a similar feel to the Final Fantasy series, but the character designs were different, some of the graphics were different, but it was
Gotcha.
still very entertaining.
Yeah. Nice.
So while we're on this kind of video game tangent, what would you say is your favorite video game to play?
To
Or that you
play.
have played?
It's tough because I like different video games for different reasons. 10 was super fun. I loved it for the storytelling, the characters, the music, anything Final Fantasy really. I do like playing Persona, as well as Persona 5 specifically. The voice acting is incredible in that game. I had a really fun time with all the characters and the game mechanics. I just feel like it's one of the most perfect games out there. So those are just a couple examples that I think are really fun.
And I know that it's always difficult for voice actors to pick out favorite characters, but what are some of the more memorable characters that you've voiced in the booth, whether it be from video games or anime?
Definitely Yuffie. She just has so much character, so much sass, and she's one of the characters that has a lot of dimension to her, which you don't really get to see in other characters, I feel, because some characters that I play only appear during a certain period of time, but for Yuffie, like, she had an entire DLC dedicated to her, so you got to see many aspects of her personality, which I really like, being able to explore different sides of characters. And also, I think, that was another one. Hard to think off the top of my head because they're all like my babies. I think Pumpkin Pie Cookie is really fun from Cookie Run Kingdom. She's really like got this cute, creepy voice, and I don't get to do that often. Basically, anything that I don't get to stretch my wings for often is what I tend to enjoy voicing a lot.
So, I had never even heard of Galaxy Express 999 until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When my best friend said, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch this old iconic film.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been coming here since 2006 and I've never even heard of that until that time. So I said, sure, and there's this ever-growing niche for older retro now, in the same vein as like retro arcade games. It's retro anime, which goes back even farther.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to step into that community, that retro, old school, and kind of bring that to life once again? And there's an entire community that goes along with that, of retro anime fans. And it's such an interesting dichotomy that I'm really dying to know what your experience was with that and what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, actually Galaxy 999 was my second anime that I was cast in. Yeah, so after I had been cast in Kimono Friends as my first, Soundcane's had me back for Galaxy Express, which was really cool. I only played a small part in it, and I regret to say that I haven't been a part of too many retro anime, so I haven't got to experience too much of it yet, but I do definitely hope to do more.
It's definitely a fun anime.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I saw you looking,
No,
checking out the rules.
yep, because
Well, I'm definitely checking out these 3 restaurant recommendations.
Oh,
for
yes.
sure.
And how, you were talking that you never thought you would get into acting when you were teaching and working with the students and stuff.
What kind of gave you the itch of wanting to make that jump of, I want to try to become an actress?
It was more like, you know, at the point in my life where I felt like I want to do something more. Like I want to do something that really resonates with me and that I really enjoy doing. Because I think at a point where I was working, you know, I did like what I did. I learned a lot from it, but I also felt like there's this feeling inside you that's like, I don't know if this is the only thing that I could be doing in life right now. Like the world is just full of possibilities, right? So when I had the opportunity to do it, I was kind of at a crossroads. I was thinking, well, I could get another job, you know, just, you know, working in an office and live a comfortable life. Or I could do something that I've just never done before and I will probably never have the chance to do it again or never the right opportunity to do it again. So I kind of just took that chance. Like it was very scary, very much so, but I think, yeah, I do not regret taking this choice.
So that being said, did you always know that you wanted to do acting or theater? Were you classically trained, high school theater, college theater, anything like that?
No, no, I think it all stemmed from my passion for games and cartoons and anime. I always loved that as a child, and part of me felt like the child in me wasn't really fulfilled yet. Not to be corny or anything.
Same.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Age is just a number. I can pursue whatever I want. Like life is short, you know, you should just enjoy what you like to do. And if you have the means to do it, just work hard and go for it.
That's actually really inspiring. I'm sure as you know, a lot of your colleagues were, you know, it had been something like, you know, whether they went to a special film school
Yeah.
or a theater school or, you know, a lot of classical training, but it's really inspiring, genuinely, to see someone who just followed their heart and went out there and did it.
Yeah, thank you.
And congratulations on the success that you
Yeah.
had by taking the chance, because a lot of people are afraid to make that first step.
I think that's the biggest thing, is really gathering the courage. And I think that first step, you're not going to get to where you truly want to be. So, yeah, a lot of it is listening to your heart.